It's 2:47 in the morning. You know exactly the time because you have looked at your phone 3 times in the last 6 minutes. You should be asleep. You have to be up at 7. You promised yourself last weekend that you were done with this, and yet here you are again, lying on your side in the half dark, holding a phone, waiting. You are not entirely sure what you are waiting for. A message, maybe. A name to appear on the screen. A small green dot next to a person you have not technically been in a relationship with for 43 days. You have read every conversation you ever had with him 3 times. You have looked at the picture you took of him on his sofa in November, the one where he is half lying, and you have felt something in your chest do that specific thing it does when you look at him. That small electrical lift, that quick, involuntary pull of attention, and you have hated yourself for feeling it. And then you have looked at the picture again. You have, by my count, told yourself 9 separate times in the last week that this is the last time, that you are finally over it, that you will not look at his story tomorrow, that you will delete the chat, or you will block him, or you will at least uninstall the app for a few weeks. You will not do any of these things. You know you will not do any of these things. Some part of you has come to suspect, with a creeping dread, that there is something genuinely wrong with you, that you are, in some way that other women are not, defective. I want to tell you, before we go any further, that there is nothing wrong with you. The reason you cannot stop thinking about him is not a personality flaw. It is not weakness. It is not love. It is not even exactly about him. It is a very specific, very well documented neurological pattern. And once you understand what is actually happening inside your brain right now, at 2:47 in the morning, you will be in a position to do something about it. Tonight, we are going to walk slowly through that pattern. We are going to look at the chemistry of obsession, what dopamine is actually doing, why the inconsistent ones are the ones we cannot get over, why no contact feels like physical withdrawal, and what is actually required neurologically to fully release a man from your nervous system. We are also going to talk in the second half about the 30-day reset protocol, the specific sequence that breaks the loop, and about who you become on the other side of it. This is, I think, the most important video I have ever put out on this channel, because almost every woman I know has at some point been the woman in the dark holding the phone. I want you to know that you are not alone in this room. There are probably tens of thousands of women watching this right now in exactly your position, on a Tuesday or a Thursday at 2 in the morning, lying on the same side of the same bed, looking at the same kind of picture. The fact that you are not alone is not, by itself, going to fix you, but it might make the rest of the next 30 minutes easier to listen to. So put the phone face down, set it across the room if you can, take one slow breath. Let us begin. I want to give you the technical picture first, because once you see the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself for what your nervous system is doing. And that is the first step toward changing it. There is a chemical in your brain called dopamine. Most people, even women who have read about this, slightly misunderstand what dopamine actually is. Dopamine is not the chemical of pleasure. That is the popular version, and it is wrong. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipated pleasure. Specifically, it spikes when your brain detects the possibility of a reward, not the receiving of the reward, the possibility, the wait, the maybe. This is an important distinction. If a reward is fully predictable, if you push a button and a treat appears every single time, dopamine eventually flatlines because your brain has nothing to anticipate. It already knows what will happen. The reward becomes boring. By contrast, if a reward is unpredictable, if pushing the button sometimes gives you a treat and sometimes gives you nothing, and sometimes gives you a huge treat, and sometimes gives you a small disappointment. Dopamine goes through the roof. Your brain becomes obsessed. It cannot stop watching the button. It cannot stop reaching for it. It is, in the most literal neurochemical sense, addicted. This pattern is called variable ratio reinforcement, and it is the most powerful conditioning structure known to behavioral science. It is the structure that makes slot machines so dangerous. It is the structure behind why social media is so hard to put down. And, I am sorry to tell you, it is the structure that almost every emotionally inconsistent man you have ever fallen for has been running on you, almost always unintentionally. Here is how it works in a relationship. He texts you back warmly on Monday. He goes quiet on Tuesday. He is wonderful on Wednesday. He cancels plans on Thursday. He is suddenly affectionate on Friday. He disappears for the weekend. He resurfaces on Sunday evening with a message that, taken in isolation, would melt you. This is not, in most cases, a deliberate strategy. He is not running a manual. He is simply a man with an avoidant attachment style, or an unresolved emotional life, or a different definition of intimacy. And his behavior happens to follow a variable reinforcement pattern by accident. Your nervous system, however, does not care whether the pattern is intentional. Your nervous system reads the pattern as a slot machine, and the more inconsistent his responses are, the more dopamine your brain is producing every time you check your phone, because every check is a possible jackpot. The unpredictability is the addiction. It is not, despite what your conscious mind is telling you, that he is uniquely wonderful, or that you have finally met your soulmate, or that this is what real love feels like. It is that the neurochemistry of inconsistencies is biologically indistinguishable from the neurochemistry of obsessive falling in love. This is the first sentence I want you to write down somewhere. The intensity you feel with him is not a measure of love. It is a measure of how unpredictable he is. Read that again. The intensity you feel with him is not a measure of love. It is a measure of how unpredictable he is. Almost every woman in her 20s has, at some point, mistaken this neurochemistry for destiny. She has thought, no one else has ever made me feel this way. This must mean something. She has thought, the consistent men I have dated bored me, but this man feels different. She has thought, this is the kind of love I have been waiting for. None of that is, technically, true. What is true is that her brain has finally been placed in front of a slot machine with the perfect reward schedule, and her brain has done what brains do in front of slot machines. It had gone quiet about everything else. The second thing you need to understand is what is happening when you try to stop. When you say to yourself, that is it, I am done, I am going no contact, within hours, sometimes minutes, you begin to feel a specific kind of pain that almost nobody warns you about. It does not feel like sadness. It feels like withdrawal. It feels like a low, constant tightness in your chest, a racing thought pattern that you cannot turn off, a compulsive need to check your phone, even though you have told yourself you will not, a physical restlessness where you cannot sit still for more than 10 minutes. An inability to enjoy anything you used to enjoy. Food tastes flat, music feels far away, friends are exhausting. And, in the worst hours, a kind of low-grade panic that feels almost identical to anxiety, but is, technically, something different. Here is what's happening. When the dopamine loop is suddenly cut off, your brain does not adjust gracefully. It has been receiving variable reward hits for weeks or months. It has remodeled itself around the expectation of those hits. The specific neural circuits involved in checking for him, anticipating him, hearing from him, are larger and more sensitive than they were before he existed in your life. When you cut him off, those circuits start firing for a hit that is no longer coming. They do not know that. They keep firing. The firing, experienced from the inside, is the obsessive thinking, the chest tightness, the compulsive checking. This is, in a literal neurochemical sense, withdrawal. It is not metaphorical. The same brain regions involved in heroin withdrawal and nicotine withdrawal are involved in this. You are not being dramatic. You are not making it up. Your nervous system has been chemically dependent on the unpredictable presence of one specific person, and it is now experiencing the absence of that person at a chemical level. The good news is that withdrawal in any system follows a predictable timeline. It is intense for the first 3 to 7 days. It is significantly reduced by day 14. It is, in most cases, mostly resolved by day 30. By day 60, the neural circuits involved have begun to atrophy through disuse, the way unused muscles atrophy. By day 90, they have been substantially rewired, and the person who was, in week 1, the only thing your brain could think about, has become an occasional intrusive thought. The most important thing about this timeline is that the first week is the worst. Almost every woman I have ever spoken to who broke a dopamine loop with a man broke contact, made it 3 or 4 days, felt the worst of the withdrawal, and decided, in the moment of maximum pain, that the pain meant she had made a mistake. She had not made a mistake. She had been at the very peak of the withdrawal curve. If she had held one more week, she would have crossed into the easier territory. Instead, she sent the message. She got the small response. She got the dopamine hit. The loop was, in that moment, reinforced more strongly than ever, because the brain had learned that if it suffered hard enough, the reward would eventually come. This is the cruelest part of the trap. Every time you break and reach out, you make the loop stronger. Every successful refusal weakens it. The asymmetry is brutal, and it is also your way out. I want to be honest about something that the general dopamine explanation misses. Because if it were only about variable reinforcement, every woman would be equally susceptible. And you and I both know that some women are far more vulnerable to this pattern than others. Why? The answer has to do with what is called attachment style, which is a piece of psychology that is fashionable on the internet right now, but that is much less well understood than it is talked about. Your attachment style is, roughly, the unconscious template you formed in early childhood for how relationships work. If your earliest caregivers were inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes absent, your nervous system learned, before you had language, that love is something that comes and goes unpredictably. Your nervous system encoded this as normal. It encoded the chemistry of anxious waiting as the chemistry of love. This is what we call anxious attachment. And almost every woman who finds herself unable to get over an emotionally unavailable man has some degree of it. Not because she is broken, because decades ago, her tiny nervous system was wired to recognize inconsistencies as the texture of intimacy. When she grows up and meets a consistent, available, present man, her nervous system does not light up. He feels boring. He feels like a friend. There is no chemistry because there is no anxious waiting, and her nervous system has never learned that love can exist without anxious waiting. When she meets the inconsistent man, however, her nervous system lights up like a Christmas tree. This is it. This is what love feels like. The recognition is not, despite what she thinks, recognition of him. It is recognition of the pattern. Her body is remembering the texture of her childhood. Of course, she cannot stop thinking about him. He is, neurologically, home. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The man you cannot stop thinking about is not, in many cases, your soulmate. He is your nervous system's earliest blueprint, presented back to you in adult form. This is not a thing you can think your way out of in an afternoon. It is, however, a thing you can rewire. The rewiring is what the second half of this video is about. But before we get there, I want to name one more thing because it will save you a lot of pain. The reason this pattern is so devastating for the woman in it is that from inside, it feels like love. It does not feel like a dopamine loop. It does not feel like a childhood blueprint. It feels like the most real, most intense, most meaningful connection she has ever experienced. And because it feels like that, she defends it. She defends it to her friends, to her therapist, to herself. She thinks, you do not understand, this is different. The closer she is to the inside of the loop, the more certain she is that this man is the one, and the more certain she is that the only problem is timing or circumstance or his recent stress or the fact that he is just not very good at expressing his feelings. She constructs entire elaborate explanations for behavior that, from outside, is just inconsistency. I want you to hear me very gently here. The certainty you have about him is not, by itself, evidence that he is the one. It is, in many cases, evidence that the dopamine loop is mature. The deeper you are in the loop, the more certain you feel. That is the trap. Now we get to the part that will actually help you. I want to walk you through, in some detail, what the next 30 days look like if you decide to break this. I want to warn you, before I begin, that I am going to be specific. I am not going to give you motivational fluff. I am going to give you the protocol, because the protocol is what works. Day 1 is decision day. On day 1, you do 4 things. In this order, you delete his number. You unfollow him on every platform, not block, just unfollow, because blocking creates its own checking compulsion. You delete the chat history if you can bear it. If you cannot, you mute him so that you cannot see new messages, and you commit to not opening the chat. And you tell one trusted friend, in writing, that you are starting 30 days. You ask her to check in with you on day 7 and day 14 and day 21. The reason this matters is that there is a body of research showing that publicly committing to a behavior change roughly doubles your success rate. The friend is not there to hold you accountable in a punishing sense. She is there as a witness. The witness changes the neurochemistry of the attempt. Days 2 through 7 are the worst. I will not lie to you. This is the peak of withdrawal. You will feel the things I described earlier, the chest tightness, the compulsive checking impulse, the inability to enjoy normal things, the racing thoughts. Your job in this week is to do almost nothing except survive. You do not need to be productive. You do not need to be the best version of yourself. You need to get through. The 2 things that help most in this week are physical movement and texture. Movement, walking, swimming, slow running, anything that gives your dysregulated nervous system somewhere to send the energy. Texture, hot baths, cold water on the face, a heavy blanket, soft fabric, a textured stone in your pocket. Your nervous system needs sensory input that is not the phone. Give it sensory input. Specifically in this first week, do not make any decisions about him, the relationship, your future, or your worth as a person. The brain in week 1 withdrawal is not a reliable narrator. Any conclusion it reaches about the situation is suspect. Just hold, walk, bathe, sleep, cry if you need to, eat, repeat. Days 8 through 14 are easier but trickier. The acute withdrawal has begun to ease. You will have moments of unexpected lightness where you forget about him for 10 minutes and then realize you forgot and then feel a strange grief about the forgetting. This is normal. The trick of week 2 is that you will be tempted around day 10 or 11 to do something to celebrate that you are over it. You will be tempted to look at his profile just to see if you feel anything. You will be tempted to send him one message, a kind, mature, closure-seeking message. Do not do it. The brain at day 11 is not over it. The brain at day 11 is in a small lull. The dopamine circuits are still alive. just quieter. One small hit at day 11 resets the loop. You will be back at day 1. Many women I have known have made it 11 days, 3 or 4 times in a row, and never gotten past it because they keep resetting in this exact same window. Do not be that woman. Days 15 through 21 are where the real change starts. By this point, the obsessive thinking has noticeably reduced. You will go entire afternoons without his name surfacing in your mind. You will start to notice other men, not because you want to date them, but because your perceptual field has begun to widen again. You will sleep slightly better. You will begin to be hungry at normal times. This is the beginning of nervous system recalibration. In this week, you start adding things in rather than just surviving. You add one regular social activity per week. You add one creative practice that is just for you. You add one consistent physical practice. You are, in a literal neurochemical sense, beginning to give your dopamine circuits other places to fire. Days 22 through 30 are the consolidation phase. The hardest part is over. The thinking has dropped to a low background level. You will have 1 or 2 relapse impulses, usually triggered by something specific, like a song that played in his car, or a place you went together, or an anniversary date. These will spike sharply and then pass. Do not act on them. Just let them rise and fall, the way a wave rises and falls. Note the trigger in your phone or your notebook. The point of noting the triggers is that by the end of the month, you have a small inventory of the things that still set the system off, and you can plan around them in month 2 and 3. At the end of 30 days, you will not be done. I want to be clear about that. You will be significantly better. The acute compulsion will be largely gone. The neural circuits, however, will not be fully atrophied for about 90 days, and they will be susceptible to reactivation for closer to a year. This is why the rule for women who have done this work is no contact, no profile checks, no exceptions. Not for 30 days, for at least a year. Some people would say forever. The reason is that even one small hit, even an accidental glimpse of his name on a friend's phone, can light up circuits you had thought were dead. The kindest thing you can do for yourself is to be ruthless about the absence of contact for a long time. Before I give you the picture of day 90, there is something I want to address because almost every woman who reaches week 3 asks me about it, and if I do not name it now, you will hit it and feel betrayed. Around day 20 or 21, when the worst is mostly past and the obsessive thinking has eased, something strange happens. You begin to feel, in a way you did not expect, a kind of grief that has nothing to do with him. The grief is harder to describe. It is something like, why did I let myself spend that long on someone who did not choose me? Or, what have I been doing with my 20s? Or, who would I have been if I had not given that man, that whole year, that level of access to my mind? This grief is not a sign that you have made a mistake. It is the opposite. The grief is what arrives when the dopamine fog clears enough for you to see, for the first time in months or years, what the obsession actually cost you. The cost is real. The grief is appropriate. You are not allowed, by the way, to use this grief as a reason to reach out to him. The grief is not about him. It is about you. It belongs to you. He cannot fix it. Only time and slow self-attention can. The way through this grief is to write to your past self, not as a fantasy exercise, as a literal letter. You sit down on a Sunday, you take an hour, and you write, in long form, what you wish someone had told you 18 months ago. You will be amazed at how much wisdom you have collected without realizing it. Almost every woman who does this exercise emerges from it with a feeling she has not had in a long time, which is the feeling of having an internal ally rather than an internal critic. The ally is the most important thing you will build in this 30 days. It will outlast him. Now, day 90. Let me give you something to hold on to, because the protocol is hard and you will need a picture of what is on the other side. At day 90, you will not have entirely forgotten him. You will still remember the songs and the places and the way he laughed at one specific kind of joke. The memories will not be gone. What will be gone is the charge on them. You will be able to remember him the way you remember an old job, with some affection, some critical distance, and a clear sense that you would not go back. The thinking about him when it happens will be brief and unburdened. More importantly, something else will have changed. The version of you who was lying on her side at 2:47 in the morning, holding a phone, will be a person you can almost not recognize. Not because you have transcended her, because you have gently outgrown her. You will look back on her with the same tenderness you look back on yourself at 15. She did the best she could with the wiring she had. She is not weak. She is not stupid. She was caught in a neurological pattern she did not have the framework to see. You have given her the framework now. She has used it. She has come out the other side. The woman on the other side has a different relationship with her phone. She has a different relationship with men. Specifically, she is no longer attracted to chaos in the way she used to be. Consistent men have started to seem not boring, but quietly attractive. The inconsistent ones who used to set her heart racing have started to feel slightly tiring. She does not have to talk herself into this. Her nervous system has been recalibrated. The recalibration is doing the work for her. This is what the protocol gives you. Not a man, not a relationship, not closure, a different nervous system. Out of the new nervous system, eventually, a new relationship will come, with a man you would not have been able to recognize as desirable a year ago. He is, in the technical language of attachment, securely attached. He texts back consistently. He shows up on time. He does not vanish for 3 days. He is, by the standards of the old nervous system, suspicious of how easy he is. By the standards of the new nervous system, he is, finally, restful. The restfulness is what intimate love actually feels like. You did not know before because you had never been in it. I want to add one final thing about this future man, because I think the internet has slightly poisoned women on this point. He is not going to be perfect. He is not going to be a tall, handsome stranger who walks into your life and fixes everything. He will be a normal man. He will have his own anxieties and his own bad days and his own ways of misunderstanding you. The difference is not that he is flawless. The difference is that the relationship will not feel like a slot machine. There will be no dopamine peaks at 2 in the morning. There will be no obsessive checking of his profile. There will be no friends having to talk you down from a relapse. The whole register of the relationship will be quieter. The quietness is what stable love is. We have been so trained to intensity for love that when stable love finally arrives, many women do not recognize it. The signal you are looking for is not butterflies. It is rest. There is one more thing about who you become at day 90 that I want to mention, because it is the part that surprises women the most. You will become, in small and large ways, slightly more compassionate toward other women in the position you used to be in. The friend who is on her phone all evening waiting for a man to text, you will not feel impatient with her anymore. You will recognize the look in her eye. You will gently want to put a hand on her arm and tell her about variable reinforcement and dopamine circuits and the 30-day protocol. You will not say all of it. You will say a small, kind thing. You will, in that moment, have become the older friend you yourself once needed. This, by the way, is the secret completion of the loop. Almost every woman I have ever known who walked out of a dopamine trap relationship has, within a year or two, become, for at least one younger or less experienced woman in her life, the older friend who tells the truth. The chain is how the wisdom moves between women. You are, right now, the recipient of someone's chain. Tonight, in the dark, with your phone face down across the room, you are picking it up. In a year or two, you will be passing it on. I want to leave you with one practical instruction and one final thought. The instruction is this. After this video ends, do not pick your phone up to look at his profile. Do not open his chat. Do not even type his name into the search bar to see what comes up. Put your phone face down. If you can put it in another room, put it in another room. Wash your face. Drink a glass of water. Get into bed. Sleep if you can. If you cannot sleep, lie there. Tomorrow is day one if you want it to be. The thought is this. Almost everything that has hurt you about this man, almost everything that has kept you up at night, almost everything that has made you feel that something is uniquely wrong with you, all of it is, in the end, a story written in dopamine. Dopamine is not destiny. The story can be rewritten. It takes 30 days for the rewrite to begin, and 90 days for the rewrite to settle, and about a year for it to become permanent. That is a small fraction of your life. It is, by some distance, the most important fraction you will ever spend. The woman you are on the other side of it is the woman you have, somewhere quiet inside, been waiting your whole adult life to become. She has not been hidden from you. She has just been waiting for you to put the phone down. Put it down. I'll see you on Friday. This was the Femme Frequency. Sleep well.